I want to give you some teaching on different secular conceptions of justice. We're getting toward the latter portion of our sermon series on biblical justice. And what I want to do here is, you're wrestling in our society. You're hearing this word justice, justice. It's so controverted, and some of it is just flat out confusing. And what I want to do in this video is to give you some understanding how some of the different secular conceptions of justice are causing all this confusion and why it is so controverted and why it's so difficult today. And so what I'm going to do is I want to take you through a really excellent essay written by Pastor Tim Keller. And I know, if you've been pastored by me for, I love Tim Keller. I love citing him and quoting him. Doesn't mean, of course, I agree with him. It seems like I always agree with him, but I don't actually. Actually, on this subject, I tend to actually disagree with him more than I typically do. But this essay in particular is very, very helpful. Just a superb essay, and I want to give you, highlight some portions of it for you. So let's go there, okay? So this is the name of the essay: A Biblical Critique of Secular Justice and Critical Theory by Timothy Keller. So if you want, just Google it: Biblical Critique of Justice, Secular Justice and Critical Theory by Timothy Keller. I urge you to read the whole thing. Go find it. It's not that long, but it's very eye-opening. It's worth your time. I promise you. Go ahead and read the whole thing. Now, what I want to do is, over a couple videos, I want to just highlight some important stuff here and how it could help illuminate and help you understand what's going on in our culture today, and how we as Christians who believe in the Bible should start to offer some kind of guidance to thinking through some of the confusions in our culture. So let's see where this starts. So it's actually this is one of a series, but I think this is the best of the essays of this series on justice that Keller has written. So it's the problem we face. Which justice? There has never been stronger calls for justice than those we are hearing today, but seldom do those issuing the calls acknowledge that currently there are competing visions of justice. So let me just put that: competing visions of justice, often at sharp variance, and that none of them have achieved anything like a cultural consensus, not even in a single country like the US. It is overconfident to assume that everyone will adopt your view of justice rather than some other merely because you say so. I just want to stop here just a moment, okay? This is just so right on. A lot of times we hear this word justice. A lot of people use this, we use this word, and then we have a kind of definition in mind of what we think the word means. And we think this word is, the definition and meaning of this word is apparent to everybody. If you say justice, don't they know what, just and justice is? But you know what? Actually, there are different kinds of ways of thinking and different perspective, different fundamental ideologies of justice. And this is especially so in the secular world. At least we're Christians. We at least know what we're supposed to believe. Not all Christians do. We're supposed to have our standard and definition and understanding of justice from the Bible. This is why we're having, a sermon series devoted to that topic. But I want to here offer you something to see. There are competing secular understandings of it. And so right now, we're in a time when there are the people who are leaders in our society, the elites of our culture, the people who are in control of our universities and our media in particular. They tend to speak as if this understanding is just everybody should understand, and they really are demanding that we conform to their understanding of justice. But it's really arrogant. It's really honestly arrogant, because this is just the plain fact of the matter. There are competing visions of justice. And by the way, there's not even just one vision of secular justice. And so, this is something that people should understand, just of humility. I wish even the people who don't believe in the Bible, who are our secular neighbors, should understand that they have competing secular understandings of justice. And so if we're going to live in our country and have peace, we should try to have understandings with this in each other, and instead of just imposing our views upon others and then judging them because they don't conform to our views. So then here he takes you through a history of justice, different, this is, you may care more about, and then he gives you the fundamental, more philosophical problem that's going on here. And then he gives you a brief outline of biblical justice, just, it's brief. And then he offers this, which is what I want to get into, just to close out this particular first introductory video, a spectrum of justice theories. And so what he offers is four secular viewpoints. And so let me just go in briefly outlining the alternative accounts of justice operating in our culture. Some oversimplification is unavoidable. Still, there's widespread agreement. So something like the four categories of justice theories are operating. And I think he's right. These are the basic four that, at least in our culture, in our secular culture, that they are that are usually different people operating under. But so here it goes. All the theories on the spectrum are secular, and they share two assumptions. First, unlike Martin Luther King Jr., he's a Christian pastor, and he's citing a famous thing that he wrote, Letter from a Birmingham Jail. They all assume that there are no transcendent moral absolutes on which to base justice. In other words, justice has to have a purely secular meaning, that just only the human beings, we as inside of the world, without any reference to anything higher, God, the Bible, some kind of revelational text, that this is all these definitions have to have only secular reference and premises, right? They believe in Taylor's immanent frame. And that's a quote. That Taylor here is Charles Taylor. Charles Taylor is a really important 21st century Catholic philosopher. And he wrote a really important book called A Secular Age. And immanent frame means that everything is framed inside the immanent. Nothing is transcendent. Truth, morality can only come from inside the immanent, inside of the secular, inside the world. Nothing of heaven or of God or something like this, right? These are the premises of our secular age. That there is no supernatural reality, and so moral values and the definition of justice itself are invented by human beings. It's all human. So obviously, right away, we're already going to all four of these secular social justice theories, what I would call secular social ideologies, visions. Already, we as Christians can't agree with them. Certainly not all of them. We can agree maybe in part with some portions of them, and all of them do have some pieces of truth and even some wisdom in it, but their fundamental foundations are profoundly in conflict with what we believe as Christians and as we stand on the Word of God, the Bible. Here's the second one. They all see human nature as a blank slate that can be wholly reshaped by human means, not as a God-given nature that must be honored for us to thrive. So that's, just understand, all four of these views, we disagree. Like, human beings can't just be shaped by other powers, and if we just shape the market the right way, if we just shape the government the right way, if we just educate people the right way. No, there's actually a fundamental human nature given by God, created by God, and that we have to go toward God. And if we obey the things of God and trust in the wisdom of God, it'll help us to thrive in the way we were meant to be from God. That's a profoundly different piece of presupposition, okay? So here's the way that he gives us a spectrum. And I think this is really, really helpful and excellent. He says, on the one hand, some lean more toward individualism. And here he says that he offers you some of the key thinkers. This is Locke and Hume. All right, this is Locke and Hume, very, very important Enlightenment thinkers, right? And then on the other side is collectivism. That means not of this, but we as a group. And the important thinker here is Karl Marx, right? And I think he's right there too. So you are wholly the product of your individual choices. Primarily, it's about who you are as an individual and what you choose. And that's how we're going to get to justice. Or you are wholly the product of social forces and structures. And so this is the way Marx tends to think. Now, what I want to just do is just show you that there are four, but I don't want to go over all four. I really want to go over two of the four, which I think are the really important ones. Okay, so on the more individualist, the most individualist is the libertarian view. Justice is basically about freedom. We need to have maximum freedom for the individual. And so in our society, those people who have tended to think this have tended to be on the political right end of the spectrum. Okay. Then there's justice is the what we call the liberal view. The liberal view, justice is basically about fairness. And this has tended to be people a little bit more on the political left of the structure, at least historically. When I was growing up in the late 70s and 80s, I would basically said that most, you'd have some people who are on the more on the libertarian side. They tend to be on the political right and tend to be more Republican. And then those on the liberal side, they tend to be on the more on the political, they tend to be Democrat. And you had Christians who were both this side and on this side. And they, of course, you had Christians who were Republican, Christians who were Democrat. And when I was growing up, it wasn't considered like if you're a Christian, you could be one or the other, and Christians had to learn how to get along and not judge each other on whether they're Republican or Democrat. Generally, okay. There's this other view, the utilitarian justice is basically about happiness. So only everybody has a right to be happy. That's a common view today, but this is the one that's really important for us to swallow. The postmodern theory and understanding of justice. Justice is basically about power. This is the most influenced by Karl Marx or Marxist type interpretive thinking. Today, some people would consider this. I think it's very fair, and more than fair, it's very accurate to say postmodern understanding of justice is neo-Marxist, neo meaning new, the new kind of Marxism. And what's really happened in our society is essentially this was the dominant view. Some people, of course, believe this. When I was growing up in the late 70s and 80s, and even getting to the 90s, the liberal view that justice is basically about fairness probably had the most common consensus. Nobody really had a strong, but this probably had the strongest buy-in, especially from people who went to universities and then within the discourse of our society, like say in the media. And then, but lately, what has happened is the people that shape our discourse, the elites in our society, have shifted from more of a liberal view of justice to a postmodern view of justice. And really, it's a kind of bait and switch. There's millions of people who agreed with this type of view, and now they're being pressured to agree with this type of view, even though they really mean two separate things. This is a big key as to why things are so confusing and why people are behaving in such a very, very intolerant and demanding and very illiberal way. There are people who are liberal Democrats who are saying that today's justice is very illiberal. And this is because we've gone in our culture is shifting to a postmodern view of justice. And so have that in mind. And in the next couple of videos, we'll go over liberal and then we'll go over postmodern.